It was a cold September evening when I was standing at the tiller sailing into the harbour of Stockholm, looking for mooring at night. And on deck were my friends from the US, from Sweden, from France, from Germany. There was Tom, there was Jörg, there was Mats, there was Pascal, and there was Dave. And we were all coming from different corners of the world, spending a weekend on the boat. And naturally, coming from different cultures, we were discussing very eagerly how it is possible to create cultures in a company and why does it appear to be so difficult? And maybe you've been asking yourself, why is it so difficult to create a common culture in your team as well? And while I've been over the last years coaching managers and introducing cultural and training programs into large organizations, I've discovered that actually there are three fundamental mistakes that managers do when it's about integrating cultures. And that is why they actually fail to integrate the cultures that they want to have in their teams afterwards. So let's have a look. First of all, you might think, well, it is very easy to decide on the values for a team, right? Of course it is, because it is very easy for everybody to aspire to these big words everybody would like to be. But what I've seen happening then is that after that, nothing further really gets done or discussed, and that summary of value words that you created at one time just remains an empty message. Which is a shame, considering the expectation you had on creating that culture in your team. So what else have I noticed? Well, I've noticed that some managers, they struggle to define the key behaviors, which is important because, after all, culture is made out of behaviors. But they, after that struggle, they actually don't connect it to any training or to anything in their daily life, and that's why nothing further gets done, and in the end, nothing further changes. Which is again a disappointment, considering the fact that you actually are expecting something really great out of creating this culture. The third thing that I've noticed is that there is always a priority on business results. It is quite normal. But since there is no connection of those behaviors to business results, everybody throws up their hands and gives up and says the impact of this cultural change cannot be measured, and everything gets postponed until better times. And this is typically what happens in organizations when leaders try to introduce a culture into their teams. But what I discovered when I was coaching and training managers and when I was writing my book, Speaking the Language of Leadership, that actually there are clear steps that you can do with your team and really create the culture you want. But the only thing that you need to know is actually the steps, how you create the culture from start to end. So let's have a look what the elements are to create culture. Well, first of all, of course, there are the core values. These are very important to define, because without the core values, you don't really have a home for your team. These core values make everybody feel comfortable in this environment where they're supposed to be. But from the core values onwards, you have to define a few more things and you have to discuss a few more things with your team. The next thing that you would want to discuss with your team is the ultimate behavior based on the core values, because values typically drive behavior. But as you can always have multiple behaviors connected to one value, you would want to decide exactly what the behavior is that you would like to have. Let me give an example. Somebody can be a little curious around things. And curiosity, especially in the sense of the curiosity around the customer needs, might be really good. But what type of behavior would you expect out of the curiosity for the customer needs? Yes, you could ask questions, you could challenge the customer, you could have another opinion about these things. Now, For other people, these types of behaviors might mean different things. So you want to have a good discussion with your team to clarify which ultimate behaviors you would like to have and how you connect them to the values that you expect. The next thing that we would want to do is actually train and learn and practice these types of things. Now you might say, but everybody knows these types of behaviors. Yes, that is true. But not everybody can connect a situation to the type of behavior and the expectation that you have. That is why you have to learn and practice these things. You have to go through different key situations that you have in your daily life, inside with your team, with your company, with customers outside, so that everybody can learn to recognize the situations where this behavior is required and expected. And when you start learning these things, and when you open up the horizon and the perspective of the people, then you want to take the next thing. Because the next thing is the T actually in culture here at the top. And the T is about having the team agreement so that everybody on your team says, yes, now I understand what the culture is that we're supposed to create. And now I can understand how I can create it. And everybody agrees that, yes, this is what we want to create. But at this moment in time, the culture development doesn't stop. Actually, you want to take it one further. The next thing that you would want to do is you would want to see how these things actually unfold and how they connect into business. And this is where you as a local leader, as a team leader, as a direct manager play a huge role. Because if you have this team agreement and everybody decides and knows now what to do, if you don't maintain the connection to the business results and the expectations that you would like to have, it is going to get lost. And getting lost is of course nothing that you would want to have when you really want to make sure that you want to have the culture you're looking for, because it is important for your business. The next thing that you would want to do after you have been unfolding the connection to the business is take a look how your team is actually doing these things, which means that you would want to reflect, repeat, and refine what you once decided at the beginning were the behaviors that you wanted to have. And this is typically where many change programs and culture programs fail, because they don't have any room for people to reflect, repeat, and specifically refine what they need to do locally. Because they're so busy in controlling everything, they actually squeeze and suffocate the initiatives that are happening locally. And in my experience, this is exactly where the success in a cultural program lies, is then when you give the liberty to the teams to reflect, repeat, and refine what they need to do in their interpretation towards what had been decided earlier on. And finally, there was one more letter to be looked at and to be taken care of, which means that in the end, of course, you'd want to enjoy the results. Because the results will come. This is why you have taken the initiative to develop culture altogether, because you know that just following up on the projects and following up on the actions is not enough. You want the culture so that your teams actually can be proactive, they can be there together, and you have this sense of it's us doing this. And that is why creating the culture has actually these steps in it. It starts with the C, with the core values. It's with the U, with the ultimate behavior. It's with the L when you want to learn and practice what you need to do. The T is for the team agreement. Then you want to continue with the U to unfold and connect it to the business. You want to have the R where you reflect, repeat, and refine. And in the E, you want to enjoy the results. This is how you create a culture in your team. And this is what I found these managers were developing themselves towards to when they turned from being good managers and became great leaders. Because underlying between all the tools that I captured and wrote about and offer you training if you actually sign up and buy this book, then you will see these elements actually unfolding during the story that I have been writing here about how these managers became great leaders. And when you buy my book, Speaking the Language of Leadership, which is available on Amazon, you will get free training around tools like these so you can become exactly as efficient and as successful as the managers here in this story speaking the language of leadership. So what are you waiting for? It's a tremendous step for you and your team to move forward.